You know, I'm gonna give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Stop laughing! And when I do, start.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You fucking guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I am pleased to introduce to you the Howard Stern Show on September 11th, 2001. And to join me, I had a radio professional come on. Drew, whatever his name is, who cares? It's from the Drew and Mike Show. What's up, buddy? It's Drew Lane. What's going on, man?
I'm pumped. I have not heard much of the Howard Stern Show on that day. I remember our show pretty well, and I've listened to it, and a lot of people have listened to it, but I'm very intrigued to hear Howard's show.
Well, so this episode came about because I subscribed to the Drew and Mike Show on YouTube, which you guys should all do. And I guess because of that, randomly in my YouTube algorithm, up pops, and I guess because I look at a lot of this historical stuff for this show and just my own interests. So for whatever reason, it fed me a full episode of the Drew and Mike Show from September 11th, 2001. And I sent it to Drew and I was like, have you heard this? Like, do you know this is on YouTube in its entirety? And he was like, geez, I haven't listened to this in forever. And it was bizarre to listen to because Drew was like nailing things that were happening in real time to the point where I was like, were you in on this in some way? What's going on here?
That's really funny. We really were. I got to say, I'm really proud of that show, and a lot of people commented on it. And nailing Osama bin Laden, when I heard myself nail that, re-nail it, listening to it the other day, I was like, yes, I was so pleased with myself. And my partner, Mike, who is deceased, is a pilot, and Mike was identifying, like, you know, the type of engines. Well, it's got to be a commercial jet because it's, I mean, he was so on it. He just nailed it. It was great to have a pilot in the studio that day. He
was throwing a lot of jargon and plane lingo out there, and I was like, it was funny that you told me he was a pilot, because listening to it, I was like, what does this guy fucking know? And you're like, oh no, he knows. He seems to know everything.
He normally got berated for that jargon, but it really came in handy on 9/11.
I'll say, yeah, he was lucky that day, unlike so many. But
yeah, no, honestly, it was that was a good thing. There were a lot of bad things that day, but it was good to have Mike Clark in the studio. I mean, as it was any day, really. I mean, my amazing partner Mike was stellar in many, many ways. But I tell you, when it comes to airplanes, very few people knew more than Mike.
Yeah, and Drew, like I said, old, you can tell by his sultry pipes, old school radio guy, been doing it forever since. But you've had the podcast now for how long? You've been doing the podcast very early.
Going on 8 years. We started in 2016 after a disastrous run on sports radio following WRIF. We were on a rock station for 22 years in Detroit, and then they brought in Dave and Chuck, dumped us. Oof. And they threw me on sports radio in the afternoon, and it was really just a total debacle. I didn't want to talk about sports all the time, first of all. And second of all, they had Mike and Mike from ESPN in the morning who did worse shares than public radio in Detroit. I mean, they were like 22nd in the market. And in the afternoon, I think we were 4th or 5th most of the time. So it was an uphill battle that we were never going to win. And when they said, either you talk all sports or you go do something else, I was delighted. I was really happy to leave. And that's when I started podcasting in 2016.
That sums up the radio business, by the way, to take guys that have no interest in talking sports and being like, you're a sports show now. No, I don't want to do that.
I know. I love sports. I like talking sports, but sports radio, after having done it for 2 years, I actually lost a lot of interest in sports because I hated faking manufactured topics so much when nothing's going on.
That's what, I mean, Kirk Minahan was the same way, where he started in sports talk radio. And then I think like started to genuinely resent sports because that's what program directors do, is try to jam it down your throat nonstop. Where it's like, you can't stray away from that at all.
You know what I did not see coming at all, and was just a shock to my system, was I didn't realize there were all these woke people in the sports audience.
Oh yeah,
we went about doing our normal, FM hot talk type rock and roll format, and making jokes about stuff like Well, the Jameis Winston alleged rape victim. Remember, she had multiple.
It was a funny topic. I remember. Yeah,
hilarious topic.
It was just a side splitter.
Yeah.
But she had multiple people's semen in her underwear or something, and I think that became a delightful topic one afternoon for about a quarter hour. And I just remember getting pounded by these super woke people and going, "What is going on?" Because we had weeded those people out of WRF. There was no one left like that.
Yeah.
So that was weird.
So that's what I'm saying. As a radio veteran, I thought Drew was the perfect guy to join us to break down this historic day in radio, really give us his perspective. But he's out of radio now, so make sure you follow his podcast, for God's sake. Just Drew and Mike everywhere is what people should share.
Yes, it's everywhere, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've only had it for a few months, but by all means, check it out.
Get that cooking. I'll make sure to tag you guys on our YouTube channel and all of that. And I could tell Drew is a pro, because he had his producer call me before the show to make sure everything was like running correctly. Meanwhile, Craig doesn't know we're recording right now, so we don't have the same operation you guys do.
I was in traffic. That's all it was.
Hey, I know how it is starting out. The staff starts out small, and hopefully it gets a little bigger as time goes on.
We'll see. And for us, make sure you follow Drew and Mike first and foremost, and then go to blindmike.net. If you want to find us, that's where you can find all the links to Why You Laughing, as well as the Blind Mike Project. And who are these socials that I do with Drew's pal, Carl? You can find all the links at blindmike.net, as well as the link to our Patreon, which make sure you subscribe for bonus episodes of this show. And you get these episodes a week early on Patreon. So subscribe if that interests you. YouTube membership's available as well. And let's get into it because, like I said, Drew knows what it was like to be on the radio on this day, and there's nothing like it, obviously before or since, because there's nothing like 9/11. But even if you want to compare it to, Pearl Harbor or the JFK assassination or whatever it might be, there wasn't a show like the Howard Stern show or the Drew and Mike show or any sort of talk radio like that, where you're basically interrupting a comedy show for these guys to analyze two planes crashing into the World Trade Center.
I have to tell you something a little tricky about that. There was a part in the show where they were replaying the plane going into the World Trade Center. I think it was the second plane too. Yeah. And somebody played a drop, which was the Teletubbies going again.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, oh God, should we be playing drops like that? But I think I said something, but
you did. You came off very well. Actually, no, I brought you on to cancel you for that. I don't think enough people have paid attention to that. I thought it was wrong, and you've skated for 20 years.
Yeah, I think I said something, but I didn't really mean it. It really it worked. Some of the funny stuff I thought worked that day. You just had to, if you took things in context, I think we were fair.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're analyzing here. So let's get into it. Let's hear the first clip, because to your point, this is what the Howard Stern show is talking about. Just randomly in the 8 o'clock hour on a Tuesday in September. This is the kind of shit they were talking about.
Screwing around, just kissing us, nothing heavy. And it was getting late for me. I had to go do the show. She wanted to go to another club or something like that. And I was like, I ain't going to another club. So I said to her, bottom line. What? Bottom line, she knew where to find me. She knows my number.
Oh, see, that ego, man.
Hold it a second. If she wanted it, she would have.
Engraved invitation.
Yep.
You got to pursue a girl like that a little bit.
Nah, I don't. Ralph, you know me. Do I pursue anyone?
No.
Right.
But for her, you got to pursue.
What? You don't want Pamela Anderson.
I ain't pursuing her.
Swallow your pride and go back.
I am not going to pursue her.
He's going to wait till Pamela Anderson asks him.
That's right.
And you know when that's going to be.
That's it.
That girl doesn't do that.
Well, she can do what she wants.
When she can't have guys asking her.
You know what the problem
I'm
is?
the man she can't have.
The problem is you say you don't pursue anyone, neither does she.
That's right.
Yes,
not yet, anyway.
So Kid Rock wins. What can I tell you?
So literally, Howard Stern is talking about making out with Pam Anderson. This is after his divorce, obviously. And I'm sure he thinks this is going to be the big segment, because that is like a big, if him and Pam Anderson are caught in public canoodling, that probably is a big ratings grabber. So in his mind, this is what the big segment's going to be for that morning.
Mike, he made out with Pam Anderson?
This is what I don't know if this ever happened, because obviously it gets overshadowed by what we're about to discuss. But that's what this whole segment is about, is that he made out with Pam Anderson. They're asking, like, did you grab her tits? And he's like, I can't remember. I forget if we have that clip or not.
Oh, please.
He's like, I don't remember. It was weird. So I don't know if it was a bit that she was in on or what was happening, but
because I'm about to drop her about 3 more rungs if she made out with Howard.
Well, listen, you've seen the documentary. Her self-esteem was pretty low at this time.
That's true. Yeah, which is a bonus for guys like him.
So I think we're getting into a part. And now, Drew, I don't know how often you listen to the show, but we've gotten messages before. People get very angry if we give spoilers ahead of time. You know, like if we talk about a tragic event in someone's career, maybe they didn't know about, so they don't always get us to spoil it. So all I'll say is the New York City skyline was different when Howard was talking about Pam Anderson. So we'll continue.
Go ahead.
This clip is called Fun Stuttering John Moment.
Oh, this is literally, I forgot how I was texting Drew this. I forgot how integral Stuttering John was on this day. He was in studio. I guess he just happened to be in studio when the moment happened and then never left because he has a few real, vintage Stuttering John gems here.
I can't wait.
I met Pamela at
Pamela.
Natby once out. I swear I could have dated her.
Well, there you go.
Why didn't you?
Because I wimped out because I thought she's too big for me.
Hey, whatever. Maybe I thought that too.
John and I, let me just say, John and I hung out with her one night for a couple of hours, and I didn't see any sparks of any kind.
No, I don't mean there. It was like
you know what I'm saying?
Were you rubbing her leg, John?
No, but she like stood there, and I said hello, and she said hello, and we were both in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you.
You wanted it.
Wait, if I
was about to say,
you know what, dude?
She would have said, yeah.
Pam is a friendly girl, and that's where you can't get confused.
Yeah,
you can tell when a woman wants you, and you can tell when a woman's just being friendly.
Yeah. Has a woman ever said hello to you, Drew? Is that
yeah.
Have you ever gotten that close?
I'm going to move Pam a couple rungs up if the fact that there were no sparks between them. Oh, would that have been disillusioning to hear that there were sparks? Jeez.
I love that. That's the same Stuttering John we know today, where he's like, I almost banged Pam Anderson. And you have to dig maybe a quarter inch to find, oh, she said hello to him and she was polite.
She was a head nod, probably.
Yeah.
It's amazing guys like him, though, who think they're hot for some reason or think they're important. They will get women they have no business getting. But John, in his case, I don't know. What was his first wife? Super attractive, or his only wife?
I imagine Susanna. Yeah, I'm sure she was. I don't really know what she looks like, but with the other interesting thing I found from that clip is this is like a couple years. I don't know how deep into the Stern thology you go, Drew. But I'm sure you probably have heard of the Pamela Anderson, and then he pronounces Nicolas Cage also in his audition.
Absolutely.
This has got to be like 2 years before that, I think. He knows he can. Why would he choose the name Pamela Anderson to say in that audition? He knows he can't say it.
No, it's. I mean, that whole thing was absurd. The fact that he would be doing that with Scott the engineer.
Yes.
I mean, and it sounded like there was no forethought whatsoever for that tape.
It's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. And it shows why he got the job, which of course he would never acknowledge. But if he didn't work for Howard Stern, it wasn't an effort to hurt Howard's show or pluck some of Howard's audience. There's no way he gets a job. He's the luckiest guy in the history of show business, isn't he? Really?
He really is. And we'll hear, I think we hear another couple gems from him that has not changed in the last couple of decades throughout this episode. But let's keep moving, Craig.
Yeah, I was going to say, lucky for him, a historic event happens in the middle of this story.
Yeah, honestly, John lucked out because he was probably about to get a classic beating there. But lucky enough.
You know how I know she wasn't interested in John? We sat with her for 2 hours, and they were talking about their kids a lot. That's a way you know.
That's how you get in.
Hey, I should make I don't mean to interrupt the fun, but this is a breaking news story, a serious news story.
What?
A plane has crashed, hold it, into the World Trade Center.
You're kidding.
The World Trade Center is on fire, which is
what is going on?
Really? Let me look out my window.
It's the tallest.
Just heard you say that John made out with Pamela Lee.
Look out the window. You can see it, or you can.
I don't see any fire.
There's a fire at the World Trade
It's
Center.
on the
Hold on,
other
let me go.
side, Ralph, from you.
Take a look, seriously.
Holy crap!
That's
Howard,
terrible.
I was just there. I was at a wedding right there.
It was
And she stayed.
private place?
Thank God you're alive.
Dude,
Do you see it?
dude, it's that's hot. Oh my God! I got to go out on my roof. This is incredible.
Okay, John was the classic. It could have been me because he was there.
Or not. I took it more as like, I was just there. It wasn't on fire. You know?
That will be what he meant. I should say, personally, I'm delighted because I think we sounded more intelligent when we first found out. So that's really the measure for me, is how do we sound versus Howard. I'm very happy at this moment.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting is like, because you mentioned even someone telling a drop, but I remember on your show you were kind of like, hey, knock it off, this could be serious. What's interesting there is they throw in a shot at John, like, and Grant, I probably would have done the same thing. No one knew how serious it was or anything. But that's what's interesting is like at the beginning of this news story, it was still a light enough environment where people were like, hey, they probably heard John tried to make out with Pamela Anderson, you know, throwing a couple of lines because no one knew what the fuck this was at the time.
No, it's true. I was just kidding about sounding smarter. We got off to a good start in that topic. And who would have ever thunk that it would have been what it would have been? Because I know I just assumed it was some private plane.
Right. That's what's interesting about hearing you guys talk about it, because Mike, your co-host, was like absolutely not right away, and I can't imagine there were many radio shows that happen to have a pilot in studio. So I bet for a while there were a lot of people thinking like, oh, this might be like I remember a few years after this, the Yankees pitcher Corey Lytle.
Oh yeah,
flew his plane into a building or something like that. I'm guessing at the time people were probably like, it's something like that.
That's what I thought, and it does happen.
Yeah,
rarely, but yeah, Mike was right away said, "There's no way a commercial pilot cannot miss the Twin Towers, the Twin Tower, because we didn't realize there were Twin Towers, which is one of the things I was really bummed out to hear listening back. We thought there was one."
But as Drew obviously knows, in radio, I think it's like 15 minutes the two crashes were apart, something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
But it's a long time in radio when you have to fill all that time with talking. So obviously they segue from that back into more just chatter.
Frivolity.
Yeah.
Good.
What kind of plane? Was it a private stupid plane?
I don't have any more details. I'm following this story.
I hope this wasn't one of those like terrorist kamikaze attacks.
You know what? He's preparing to
back to you and Pamela.
sit in on for Dan Rather. That's why he's being very serious.
Yes.
Taking over.
This is my audition. We go now to Sandra Rodriguez, who is on the site at the World Trade Center.
Hello.
Sandra? Hello, Howard.
The fire is going very rapidly.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking over Dan Rather when he retires. Hey, Howard. But it's a very serious story. I mean, I'm sure there's... but fortunately, it's early in the morning. Maybe not too many people are in the building.
That's also a point they kind of debunked right after that, where Gary was like 9 in the morning is late for financial people. But I will say, like right after that, they were predicting... It's such an interesting like piece of history to listen to, because like I said, there's no other event in American history where you have this much sound. I guess the closest would be like the pandemic now, where everyone had social media and everything, so you can see what everyone's reaction was. But before 9/11, there certainly was nothing where you can hear them react in real time like this.
We went right to CNN, Fox News. The networks were all over it fast, and I think if I'm going to pick a bone with Howard, they didn't do that. So they obviously didn't think it was that serious right away. I don't know why we thought it was, and we had a lot of people in our show too who are around TVs, and we're seeing that, you know, this is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It's interesting because like they do try to bring it back to levity, right? What's the next clip, Craig?
Well, if you hear in that clip we just listened to, you can hear Stuttering John be like, "Let's go back to talking about me and Pam."
John's like, wait, hold on. I remember I almost fucked Pamela.
Remember how good I looked before that plane hit?
Well, we had to cancel a couple interviews. Whoopi Goldberg we had coming on, and we had somebody else coming on.
There was another great name. It was
Eddie Munster.
Yes. Yeah.
Butch Patrick. And honestly, there was a time in my career where I would have said, "Oh, well, forget this tragedy because Butch Patrick's on in 10 minutes." You know, when I was young and stupid and I just followed the schedule, I would have done that. But I knew immediately there's no way we're going to talk to Whoopi Goldberg or Butch Patrick unless they are in the building.
Well, it was great listening to you because it was obvious. It was definitely after the second tower. It may have even been after the Pentagon was hit, where you were like, tell Butch Patrick this might not be the best day for him. Like, I think he'll understand.
But yeah, here they are getting back to Pam.
All right, yeah. So they're like, hey, tragedy happens, but people need their laughs for God's sake.
That hotel.
Well, how are they going to get? They're not going to get hoses up there. They're going to have to rely on the sprinkler
Sprinklers
system.
and all that.
And you know how well they work in the city.
But these stairwells are all
You can't drag a hose up there?
Wow. Don't they have a ladder that goes that high?
I don't even know how you begin to fight that fire.
Sand.
Good God. What do you want to know about Pam?
Okay, so then
So we were hanging out. We were at Scores.
You're kissing her. At that
It wasn't like a big makeout. It wasn't like that.
But she wasn't pushing you away either.
Nah, she was just being a little bit playful. But
So did you feel her breasts?
What?
Did you feel her breasts? Be honest. Come on. Did you feel?
The guys on the truth. I don't remember.
That's it.
Did you touch her titties?
Who could say? Who knows? Who has a memory like that?
He doesn't remember that. That's ridiculous.
I'd remember that forever.
It's crazy. It's crazy though, just because I remember, I don't blame Howard at all. Obviously, I have the benefit of hindsight here to go back and laugh at all this, but I would probably be doing the same thing. What I find interesting is like imagining a radio DJ in the 1940s being like, a couple planes attacked Pearl Harbor, anyways. So I'm banging fucking Audrey Hepburn.
Marilyn Monroe.
I'm just thinking, honestly, that Stuttering John's microphone needs to be shut off when this happens. Just be done with him.
That's a weird, and I know, me and Drew have texted about Stuttering John here and there. We are interested in that world for sure.
Yeah.
So when I was going through it, I was like, I don't want to be too biased and just pull Stuttering John clips. But then I was kind of thinking about it, saying like, it's fascinating that on the most tragic day in American history, this buffoon had a microphone and was talking to a massive audience.
No, you can't play enough Stuttering John clips for me. If you have more, I'll be delighted.
Well, he's in studio, so he makes sure to pop his head in a couple more times, I think.
Yeah, I thought so.
Classic him. He's like, answer honestly, did you grope her?
That's the big conspiracy that day. It's not it's not how does iron burn or steel burn. It's how far did Howard really get?
No, I have heard since that Howard had a spectacular show on 9/11, so it's interesting to hear. I'm sure it's going to get a lot more serious.
Oh yeah, he was very good, if I'm being honest. But
okay,
most of the clips I pulled just because I'm fascinated by that particular segment. And by the way, the reason I decided to do this episode is because on Patreon we've started doing like individual segments. Like the last Howard one we did was the origin of Baba Booey. We played the segment where that Baba Booey was first uttered. So I do think it's interesting to go break down some of these old radio segments. And so a lot of the clips I pulled from were from like the 8 o'clock hour, basically, where it was still very fresh to all of them.
Oh yeah, no, it's fascinating, absolutely. And the show is called Why Are You Laughing? So
that's right. Yeah.
This one's just labeled Explosion.
Yeah, so this is where you start to see. It's interesting to watch the speculation because it's happening in real time.
It was not leaving a tongue. It was nothing.
Oh, dude.
You got to watch your monitor. They're going to play back. There was just an explosion.
Oh my God. Let me see.
Oh no.
This is. What happened, Tom? What do you know?
I mean, all I know is that apparently a plane. I've heard Channel 2 describe it as it looked like someone was driving a drunk driver driving a car, flew into the building.
Is it a terrorist attack?
Look at that!
Unbelievable.
That's a huge hole.
See what's going on at the World Trade Center, and about. There's
wow,
an
look at
that
that.
just happened. 20 seconds.
It's even lower now. The explosion
looks like a movie.
It is. Yeah, it does. It looks like a movie special effect.
I'm telling you, it's Pam Anderson's jet.
Oh, stop!
Finny, what are you talking about?
I'm not trying to be making a.
This is not even a joke.
Wait, hold on. Is the other one catching fire now?
Gene Simmons is
no. What was the Gene Simmons thing?
Gene Simmons blew up.
Wait a second. Let me see that again.
Let's pull that up again.
Is it in both buildings?
Does it look like? Yeah, it looks like the other buildings on
Why did this explode?
Caught now.
Well, yeah, this is gonna be mad.
You start to see where some of the like Howard obviously was a true pro and realized like, okay, something's going on here. But the other guys, and this is what happens when you have guys like Stuttering John or Vinny Favale in studio, where they're like, hey, it's a fucking comedy show. We should still be making jokes, right? They don't have the same instincts that Howard did, I don't think.
No, Howard's instincts sound a little slow to come around, to be honest. John's microphone should be absolutely off. I mean, I'm delighted that it's on.
Yes, of course.
Because anything he says is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Was that him that said, it's Pam Anderson's jet?
Yes. Yeah.
Stupid.
Spoiler alert, second plane coming.
Okay.
Yeah, this is there's also a weird Robin moment coming up in a little bit. But yeah, this is where they know it's serious.
Okay.
Flames, man.
See, that's
really
the second building. So,
oh my God.
No, because the one on the
second building's on fire.
That's right. The one on the right has a hole in it.
Has a hole in it. The other one's the one that
No, I think it was
exploded.
the back,
That's a
I think it was the
reflection.
backside of the first building.
That's a reflection.
At least I hope it was.
I do too.
So anyway, Pam Anderson.
There was just a room again. Said on CNN, a second plane just crashed into.
Stop it.
A second plane.
Wait a minute. They are two buildings, and that is lower.
That's what I said.
So it's a terrorist attack,
No,
isn't it?
just that's what they're saying.
It's got to be.
Somebody just called.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
A second plane might have crashed, and a second building is on fire.
This is where we were talking about instincts. This is where, again, the Drew and Mike show said the name Osama bin Laden, I think between the two towers. I don't know that you said absolutely it's him, but you threw that name out there as a possibility. And I remember listening to it and thinking like, holy shit, how did they come up with that? Whereas Howard was a little slower on some of that stuff.
He did try to blow it up in like 93 at one point, didn't he?
Right, which is why that would be in people's minds.
I'm sure. No, and his name was out there, but I'd been reading up on it, and you hear we're making jokes about not jokes, but we're talking about 72 virgins as to why someone would do that. And I mean, a lot of the nomenclature was out there. I mean, we were very well aware of it, as were a lot of people. But yeah, you can tell. I think here we're going to see separation where the true pro, the brain behind that show, Howard, is going to step up, and I'm thinking he's going to shed those other people. By the way, Robin sounding completely in disbelief. It's a reflection. I mean, it is hard to believe that this happened. It really was at that moment, but I don't know. She doesn't sound terribly informed.
This is an interesting aspect. This is another reason I wanted a true radio guy's perspective on some of this stuff, because the whole people talk about in radio, the role of the female, I have always said is not Robin's fault, but it's radio's fault because of Robin Quivers, where I think Robin fit that role perfectly for Howard. And every, morning zoo show or whatever tried to emulate that formula for the next 30 years. And no one was as good as Howard at like keeping that role under control. So it would disrupt the show. So Robin's role of like, pumping the brakes on things is weird in moments like this, where her instinct is to be like, no, stop it. That's not what's happening. Because they're reacting to actual things in real time. So it gets in the way.
She sounds really uninformed. I mean, shouldn't you be watching CNN? Shouldn't she step outside and pop on one of the networks and be watching it and knowing instead of just kind of guessing at that point?
Couldn't she look to her right and see the building?
Yeah, right. Look out the window.
Yeah. I think this is another Stuttering John clip. It's 13 seconds. It's called 2 Lakhs.
No, I think this is Howard. That'd be great if John's like, we're 2 lakhs in this country.
There's another one somewhere, but here we go.
Does this scare you?
Yes, it does scare me. We're totally 2 lakhs in this country. Trying to tell you. Tell me if you're ready.
Would you see that movie Swordfish, Howard?
Like now at the scene, we should.
Well, in a way, it was a Stuttering John clip.
There he was. What
a
fucking moron.
Off! Oh my God!
Do you think, Drew, anywhere in the world on the morning of 9/11, after the second plane had been hit, anyone else asked, even people that hadn't heard about it yet, do you think anyone said, have you seen the movie Swordfish?
No, and I don't think if you replayed that incident 500 times that anyone ever would ever do that. He's truly unique. He's one of a kind.
Really is.
That's what I'd love the parody of Forrest Gump, where John is at every historical event asking someone about random movie trivia.
JFK gets shot. He's like, Pam Anderson was going to give me a Hummer.
What made him think of Swordfish at that moment? Does anyone know anything about the movie that would make that make sense?
What's sad, Drew, is we'll never know. Now we'll never know because Howard just moved on like a buffoon. he focused on the tragedy.
But is there anything in the plot of that movie that would be of interest?
I'd have to go back and watch it. Not to my knowledge, but
I don't think so.
I'll check the IMDb during the next clip.
yeah, look into that for us. Type in swordfish 9/11 conspiracy.
I tried already. It was
then
talking about actual fishing people. I was ahead of that one.
All right, what else do we
got? It's war.
So this is where I do find this so interesting, is because it's a totally different Howard that we hear throughout the rest of the morning, but also you get an insight into like Howard kind of having his finger on the pulse and reacting the way a lot of his listeners did. Now, granted, it was a different time, which is something I should remind people as we hear a couple of these clips. But I found Howard's reaction here interesting because it's so different than how he would react now, I think.
Producers are telling us now that we do have some videotape of the second plane, and you can see it there.
Where? I didn't see it. Oh, whoa.
Oh, my God.
We're under attack.
And from our vantage point, clearly difficult to tell.
We're under attack.
What type of plane that is, but it's a horrific scene.
All right, we've just been told also, Michael, sorry, the New York Stock Exchange is being evacuated, as is, I'm sure, much of Wall Street, if not all of it, as much as possible. But the New York Stock Exchange has suspended trading for the moment.
It's war.
Come on. Everyone tries to get out
we
of
gotta
the
go.
area.
This is Pearl Harbor.
Right, we gotta go bomb everything over there.
Crash.
We got to bomb the hell out of them. You know who it is. I can't say, but I know who it
As
is.
soon as we get
That's crazy.
This is more upsetting than me not getting Pam Anderson. What is that, Tom?
Pam Anderson was such an integral part of this thing.
So the plot of Swordfish, a covert counter-terrorist unit called Black Cell, led by Gabriel Scheer, wants money to help finance their war against international terrorism.
Okay. All right.
Maybe there's a scintilla of a point to the reference, but
maybe John thought it was them. They're coming after us.
Yeah, Howard goes, it's terrorism, and he just goes, Swordfish.
It is a movie. Probably not appropriate.
You ever seen Top Gun, Howard?
It is kind of little jingoistic to go to the let's bomb the hell out of them. I guess I thought Howard was a little better than that then.
Well, that's what I found so interesting about the clip, because now he's become such an anti-Trump guy, and he's like he's become super liberal. Like every time you see him trending on Twitter, it's because of some political thing that he's saying.
Yeah, he would not say, let's start bombing them. Or I think Robin said that, actually. And I don't know, it's a little premature. I mean, obviously, to say we're under attack I think they were absolutely right. I mean, once you saw the second two commercial jets flying into the Twin Towers, of course, yeah, we were under attack.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because you also hear Howard. I think you guys did a pretty good job at playing it down the middle, in the sense of like, I remember listening back to your clips, hearing you say a couple times, listen, it could, I think, the Timothy McVeigh thing was still in people's minds at the time. Yeah. Hey, it could be something like that. We have no fucking idea, but we also, kind of do. We have an idea who it is. You guys are pretty good at saying like, hey, there are other possibilities. Howard, I think, went a little more extreme, but I think you can also tell, based on some of the calls he gets, his audience, I think, wanted that in that moment.
Oh, I'm excited to hear that if that's coming. Yeah. Tim McVeigh and Oklahoma City was only 6 years before that, which is weird to think of. But I mean, that was when that happened in Oklahoma City. I mean, think of the insanity of it. And you guys are probably young enough that it really does it have much of an impact on you? I mean, you really understand Oklahoma City?
Not at all. I heard it's interesting because I think there's Gary Delabate also references it on this show, and you guys referenced it. So I was like, okay, obviously that was still fresh in people's minds, but I only know it as a reference. I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, the whole business of militias and these sovereign citizen types. In his case, I mean, he filled a truck full of the most incredible bomb and blew the side of that huge building off in Oklahoma City.
Right.
Why I could not tell you. Right. But that was a big deal, and it wasn't that far away. And Waco was just a couple years before that too. And Waco was fucking madness. Yeah. There was a lot of crazy shit happening.
Yeah. So where are we going now, Craig?
The first caller.
Oh, so this is, I think, what I was talking about, where Howard saying we should bomb the shit out of him or bomb the hell out of him, whatever he said, was even a little mild for some of his audience.
Yes, it was.
Right into the plant, into the building.
This is them towelhead bastards.
Well, we don't know who it is.
We don't know yet, but I got a feeling.
You know, it could be.
You can't say that, but I can say that. It's about time we take these towelhead bastards and throw them out of the damn country.
Well, don't overreact.
Too nice to people.
Let's find out who it is. We're going to find out. Once I find out,
then we'll get crazy.
Then we'll get crazy.
I got a lot of friends that work in that building. I'm sitting here watching it burning right now.
I know, Joey.
The attack happened.
That must be nuts.
It's interesting. That's another fascinating thing I find listening to old Howard clips is just some of the shit you could say on radio. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, they should have been taken off the air for saying that. I'm just saying in comparison to now what you can get away with saying on the air, it's so fascinating to hear some of the language they used on terrestrial radio back then.
Yeah, I wonder what your responsibility would be for the callers if a caller was to say something like that now. I suppose you better shut it down quick or you probably would have problems. Or tell them how wrong they are.
Yeah, I think, well, because you hear Howard say there, like, hey, don't jump to conclusions, but, you know, I got a feeling you're not too far off. That would, I think, get you fired now. Certainly if someone picked it up and it got steam on social media or something.
Yeah, no, that'd be a problem now, for sure.
Next is teach them a lesson.
See, this is more of the Trump talk. Howard hates Trump now, but he would have loved him in 2001.
You're a big pussy. You didn't touch Pam Anderson.
No, we're back on that. Dude, I'm telling you.
We can talk about that anytime.
Yeah, you can get back on me tomorrow. I'm in the middle of organizing a military action. Thank you.
Look, how do you combat this, though?
You know how. Reagan stopped them.
No, but I'm saying, I mean, you go in there and you teach them a lesson.
We know where these people are.
Yeah.
We know exactly where they are. We need to send some cruise missiles over there right now and just start bombing the hell out of them.
Today.
We're always worried about the innocent civilians who live around.
You know what? Innocent civilians, so what? They shouldn't be living by these guys, supporting them.
I
agree with crap, okay?
How about this? We won't do anything.
What about
we won't do anything. You wait and see.
Trust me, you will.
GW, you better get on the stick.
GW, you listen to this right now. You better bomb the hell out of those towel heads.
That's the interesting thing about that clip to me is like, once I started, so I was 10 on September 11th. So I didn't really know what was going on to the full extent of any kind. So once I start remembering, like, once I have like a conscious memory of politics and that sort of thing, I remember a lot of people criticizing the fact that we were in obviously Iraq, but also Afghanistan and all this kind of stuff. So I find it fascinating to listen to the reaction where they're like, we're pussies. We're not going to do anything, you know?
Yeah, that's strange, especially from that show. I mean, thinking about them now, it just makes them sound so fake. I think you should be a little more judicious about the phone calls you take at a time like that. And I suspect they probably knew exactly what those people were going to say, and they knew it would probably play well, and they were right. And I got kind of a kick out of hearing it, honestly, because you just don't hear stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, it's weird because like I think maybe based on the time I grew up too, where even my reaction, I get made fun of for being like too much of a anti-cancel culture, and you should be able to say what you want. Like I almost get too involved in some of that stuff. And even I am like, oh Jesus, like my reaction is to kind of cringe at hearing some of that language. But then you also realize that like, you know, you've been trained to do that. Like if that was still the way people talk, there's an honesty to that I do kind of respect, if that makes sense. No, I understand I'm referring to racial slurs, but there is an element of it where it's like these people are reacting honestly in the moment, you know?
I understand what you're saying. I just think that, and maybe I'm just saying this because I thought we did a pretty good job of this. I think you got to be careful about screening phone calls at a time like that. I don't, and, you know, maybe the audience he had cultivated at that time loved that, but it just seems kind of irresponsible and stupid to me to put people on the air saying stuff like that.
Right. I guess that's what's interesting about it, though, is it was almost like any other day on the Howard Stern show. That's what I find so weird about listening to some of these.
Yeah, and the Pam Anderson jokes are still kind of
still going.
Every story needs a through line. You know, that's 9/11. This is Pam Anderson.
That should be the next Pam Anderson documentary. What was her involvement on that day? Why does she keep coming up?
I don't know what it is, but she had something to do with it. This is the weird Robin moment you were talking about.
Oh yeah, this is the whole like the pump the brakes role that Robin had. This is why she's terrible in a real moment where, like, yeah, her role, I believe, is that, of course, so Howard can make black and female jokes and get away with it a little easier. But also, like, when things were getting crazy, there's someone in the room to be like, oh, come on. And I think a lot of radio shows historically have played that very poorly, but Howard was very good at it. But in a real, genuine moment like this is where Robin was very bizarre to me.
Would that be that probably won't be part of the skyline of Manhattan anymore?
Oh, stop it.
What do you mean?
We must have that.
Okay.
Well, you're not going to have it. It's gone.
But how freaky?
Put it back.
What's that stuff that's coming out of
Put it back.
That was a weird, like, I think by the end she's like joking, but her instinct is to be like, oh, stop. We're going to have that in the skyline. And I think that's Benji. That's like, the fuck are you talking about? It's gone.
No, that was before they collapsed too.
But I mean, I still think you knew it wasn't going to be a staple anymore. Yeah.
She just sounds so trite.
Yeah.
And like a school teacher or something. It's just, I never liked that role when she played it, whether she was good at it or not. I really don't like that whole the female who knows when things go too far, because I always disagree that the female knew.
Right. Were you ever strapped with that in radio? Did they ever suggest?
No, I was never in a room where someone said, now, fortunately, we brought in this female, Trudy, who's going to tell you when you're going too far, because she wouldn't do that anyway. Trudy loved dick jokes. She laughed at a lot of stuff that guys laughed at, which I think is part of what made the show work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I remember hearing Opie and Anthony talk about over the years, they would try to put a woman in with them. And their logic was like, if the woman is there to be the one who, pulls the leash on us a little bit, well, we don't want that. We don't want the leash pulled because then it's not the Opie and Anthony show, But I do think Howard was able to play that. There's instances like that with Robin that are a little cringy. But I think Howard's the one guy that was able to utilize that role. And it's so weird because one guy was successful at it. And then for 30 years, program directors were like, you need a Robin,
Yeah, I heard a lot of women over time in various shows, who were just a cold shower on really funny stuff sometimes. And it's like, that does not, when you start feeling guilty about being funny, I think you're really, really taking away some of the fun.
Right.
Here they are talking about the Bushes.
Oh, this was, I thought this was pretty interesting too. Let's hear it.
Let him do it.
Didn't George W.'s father have the chance to go all the way when we went to war? To go, just go right in and kick.
The Bushes don't have the chutzpah. They don't have the balls.
Notice they didn't do this when Reagan was.
No. You need a guy who didn't grow up rich.
A guy who can
bomb. Like me, who will bomb things because he's angry. I love to bomb.
Oh, and then George Bush said, I'll raise you one war and give you two. I'll show you, you son of a bitch.
Does Robin not sound like she loves Reagan?
That's the second clip we've played where she mentions Reagan, but there were at least 3 or 4 times where she's like, do what Reagan did. It's so weird.
It kind of sounds like she just likes building fires.
That's totally bizarre to me, especially for her.
Well, yeah, that's also like at this point, Reagan had been in office for what, 13 years? So it's a weird reference to keep making.
No, I'm just trying to think of what wars Reagan, participated in while he was president from 1980 to 1988.
Right.
No, I don't know. I don't get it.
Peaceful time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the walls came down.
Here we have another John gem.
Oh, good. Oh. We've been void of a John Zinger for a little while.
When he brings up Dumb and Dumber, probably.
But now let me ask you something. Now the World Trade Center has a sprinkler system, right? So that it's not going to be able to.
Well, that ain't going to.
Well, that's for regular fires, not an explosion.
This is an airplane driving right into the building.
You know how much fuel is on a plane?
They have loaded
with jet fuel.
So there's nothing that can be done then.
No. Listen, when they build it, they don't plan on planes driving into it.
Howard, I've got a squirt gun. Should I run over there?
John's mic should 110% be turned beyond off. He should be removed from the building, for Christ's sake, so his words can't possibly get in their microphone. But they add so much.
Quick, everyone grab a bucket and pail and run to the Trade Center.
I mean, honestly, who would really be analyzing the sprinkler system at a time like that? It's so mindless. And I love the way Howard just takes care of it by saying, they drove a plane into the building, John. Jesus.
Even the greatest sprinkler system in the world. John's blaming the sprinkler company for 9/11.
Yeah, he sees like those produce mist guns in like a supermarket. He's like, that could put a fire out, definitely.
Please tell me there's more John to come.
I can't confirm that, but I hope there is as well. I don't remember, but that might have been the. We'll see.
Leader of Thought is next.
Okay.
I'm like, you know what? This is our worst nightmare. You knew.
Oh, you know what? Let me actually set this up a little bit. I forgot. This is interesting. Where you hear, I think it's Dominic Barbara on the phone, Howard's lawyer friend at the time, and he throws in a mention because there's some speech like we were talking about going around, and this I thought was an interesting moment by Dominic Barbara.
I'm like, you know what? This is our worst nightmare. You knew this was going to happen one day, and it's happened.
Well, it's because we never settle anything.
You know what?
Right.
I got to tell you,
we don't face the fact that and I'm not saying it's the Arabs who did this. I don't know yet, but I'm guessing the Arab world has to be taught a lesson that we are the boss and you are going to be our dogs and you have got to be spanked.
Will you do me a favor, please?
Yeah.
Will you not be the leader of these thoughts right now?
Yeah, it's true. And I'm not being the leader of the thoughts. I'm saying I don't know who did it yet. It could have even been one of our own people.
Could have been the guy that could have been the Peru guy like that.
No, it could have even been
like the Oklahoma guy.
Yeah, it could have been like one of our own people. It could have been one of our own people. But you want to know something?
It doesn't. It sure doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like.
One thing seems like it doesn't feel like it.
I'm like.
That's interesting where you hear someone saying like, Howard, don't be the leader of that type of stuff. That's interesting to hear from his audience. And it's why I like real moments like that playing out. Like if you live in a world that we live in now where everything's automatically censored, you don't get the call where the guy sounds like a racist, but you also don't get a call where Dominic Barbara is like, hey, Howard, I don't agree with the way don't make assumptions like that or whatever. So I think that's a great example of how censorship kind of gets rid of any dialogue or conversation.
Well, you want a real show at that time because they're going to express the things that you're really thinking, not just the safe things or the things that the broadcaster that talks like this will be pointing out or not pointing out. I mean, it's cool to have a group of people around some microphones, except for John. What an idiot. But he's entertaining me, I have to admit.
He is.
It's really what you want. You're being entertained, too, at the same time, which is impressive to be able to entertain at a time like that.
Yeah,
it is. And that's really what John was doing. So I agree. I wish there was more John. Now,
we
started saying, why does he have his microphone on? And now we're like, Howard, get out of the way.
Yeah, we left out the part where he talks about Muhammad Atta's wood paneling. We should have kept it.
Yeah, right.
Here's another one, bombs.
Okay.
Terrorism?
Maybe this is John.
this one's titled after John.
Terrorism?
Well, we know it's terrorism, and I'm telling you, a country has to be. This reminds me of Japan attacked us in World War II, Pearl Harbor. They were the only country ever to attack the United States like this, and we took an A-bomb and we blew the daylights out of them. Harry Truman knew they were still screwing around at the end of the war.
It was 4 years later.
4 years later, they dropped an atomic bomb on their ass. And we got to drop atomic bombs.
There's got to be a war. That's all there is to
but a devastating war where people die.
No stopping this.
Burn their eyes out with
I don't want to
atomic
hear
bombs.
about casual
and about how civilians.
casualties.
Far
we got civilian casualties.
People work in the
If this guy Bush doesn't go to war right now, I'm telling you, you got
to know where to go.
We know where to
Well,
go.
you know what?
Don't you know?
If they didn't do it, they better surrender right away.
Yeah, they should all surrender right now.
I'd rather Martin Sheen stepped up than Bush right now.
That we're looking at.
Vinny, be quiet.
Vinny, where did you come from?
Right?
Vinny
handle it better.
Vinny Penn. Vinny Penn is still trying to be funny. He's like, hey, this was my day to be funny. This is my shot.
It's interesting because this is like 40 minutes after the events happened. So it's crazy that they've already gone to bomb the shit out of him and burn their eyes out and all this stuff that he's saying. But it is also interesting, and there's something I like about it. Like there's an element of cringe to it when, you know, guys like John and Vinny Favale keep trying to throw in jokes throughout the morning. But there's also an element of realness to it where people are uncomfortable. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to react, especially when you're on a show like this. You don't know what the right mood is for it. So that's what I love watching unfold.
Well, as far as Howard and burning people's eyes out and stuff, I mean, there's a reason that you have the highest ratings in the world, and that's because you reach the lowest common denominator, and the lowest common denominator likes to hear stuff like that about burning people's eyes out and destroying people and then big fat atom bombs. So, yeah, I mean, it all makes sense in a way.
And that's what's fascinating. Not to make this a political thing. I don't care if you voted for Trump. Congratulations. This isn't an insult to you. But what I'm saying is, like, it's amazing that Howard doesn't see the comparison between Trump and himself, where literally when you play this particular episode, the things that Howard took issue with Trump saying, he's saying that, and Howard's argument might be, I wasn't running for president, but he's talking to, you know, tens of millions of people.
Have you noticed that a lot of people who hate Trump the most, and I would put Howard in this category,
yes,
are a lot like Trump?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I said it the other day about Megan Rapinoe when the soccer team lost. I thought, you know, she's a lot like Trump. She would hate to hear that, but she is. She's never wrong. She's always right. She's always running her trap. It's just about different stuff.
Preach.
Yeah.
Craig loves when the show takes a political turn. Go as long as you want.
Give it to me. Here's the collapse.
Okay, yeah. So you forget the buildings had not like you know, we played Robin where there was still some hope that they would be standing, they'd be repaired or something.
Oh, thank God you took my call, Howard. No, I'm looking at 7, I'm looking at 5, I'm looking at 2, I'm looking at 4. Let me tell you something, Howard. One word on the news.
Oh, no. Wait a second. What happened?
Tom,
what happened?
Oh, my God.
What just happened?
Oh, my God.
What just happened? Look at that.
Oh, the whole World Trade Center just collapsed.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Channel 7.
Oh, my God. The whole thing just completely dropped.
Goodness.
It actually collapsed.
That's it.
Oh, my God.
Anybody who had a chance of getting out of there.
It collapsed.
That's gone. Now.
Are you watching the footage?
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrific.
The whole thing just collapsed.
What? Oh, everything around there's in danger.
And there has to be, and we'll hear a little bit from Howard where he says as much, but there has to be an element at this point when you're doing a show like this where you're like, why are we even on the air? But I think there is a comfort, and we'll hear Howard and Tom Chiasano kind of talk this out in a minute. There's an element of, because I heard you guys doing this, Drew, where you guys wanted to tap into shows that were in New York because you thought, you were like, what the hell's going on out there? We're out here in Michigan. You know, we like a little more insight. So I think there's almost a comfort, even though Howard also doesn't know what the fuck is going on. There's a comfort to someone in, you know, Florida or wherever, listening to people in New York talk about it and react to it in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just listening to a show that is a show that people you like spending, you know, a couple hours a day with every day, you might as well spend this tragedy with them too, because they're going to react the way that you probably like them to react. And Howard is giving the people exactly what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going through it with someone, like, again, we hear these reactions from them, but you're going through it with someone where you're like, I wonder how they would react. And so it is a fascinating experience.
Or if you don't know how to react, you're looking for guidance.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of his audience loved the way he reacted, and they reacted to him and probably reacted the same way after they heard the way he reacted. And so there was probably, I'm sure, a lot of, let's drop some bubs on the I'm sure that had some effect on the audience.
I wonder how many people missed 9/11 because they decided to turn on Baywatch or something.
There was
they were rewatching Swordfish.
This is the last clip from the Stern show, and it's him talking about staying on the air.
Oh, this is I perfectly segued into this clip. Let's hear them discuss it.
I don't know what we're good to do. What good it is to have us on the air right now. I don't know.
They're not letting anybody into the city, are they?
No. Tom, I don't think it does any good to have us on the air now, does it?
The only thing I'd say about having you on the air is it's a place for people to come.
Right.
Especially people in other cities. It becomes a big encounter session. If you want to continue that.
All right, I'll stay on the air for a while.
And then Howard stayed on for another close to 3 hours. His show that day was, I think, and with commercials taken out, or some commercials taken out on the YouTube video that I took it from, like 6.5 hours. And you said Drew, you guys were on till like 2:30 in the afternoon, right?
We were, and I would think, Howard, you would have had to tear him off the air. He sounds like he's ready to go, and then he kind of gets talked into staying. But I would have thought he would have wanted to stay on the air. I mean, history is happening right in front of him. So I'm surprised to hear that.
It's an interesting conflict because I think it's a rare moment where Howard wasn't worried about ratings and was legitimately saying maybe people would be more comfortable with, you know, whoever the news person of the day was on at, you know, 10 a.m. And that's an interesting conflict because then that goes into them all kind of debating, and Robin and Fred and all these guys are like, well, even if we went off the air, like, there's no way we're getting home. You know, you're not getting out to Long Island or whatever, so we might as well stick around.
When Howard was talking about getting off the air, well, there's no need for us to be here. I was thinking that he was thinking about himself, like he wanted to get the fuck to where he wanted to go, and he wasn't really thinking about what's best for his audience.
You're probably right. My mind went to, oh, he wants them to listen to the news. You're probably right. He's thinking, fuck, traffic is going to be a nightmare today.
Yeah, I want to be, because he's pretty paranoid as it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking he wanted to be somewhere, but then his instincts kicked in, and he thought, yeah, the audience would of course want to listen to him because they always wanted to listen to him. And any additional content was good at a time like that. I would say he's probably more important to the audience than at almost any time.
For sure. So you said, Craig, we have one more clip left, right? But it's not from the Howard Stern show.
No, it's our favorite segment.
Yeah. So, Drew, if anytime we can on this program, we try to shoehorn Norm Macdonald if it even remotely fits. So we have one clip of Norm Macdonald before we get out of here. But before we do that, is there anything you think we missed from 9/11? Anything we should have talked about, or any final thoughts you have on either the Stern show or from your perspective broadcasting that day?
You know, it would take so long to go through. I mean, because the last few hours on the air, because we got into the Pentagon and, oh, it's a bomb at the Pentagon. No, it's a plane at the Pentagon. A plane crashed into the Pentagon. And then there's one more flight. It's still in the air. And that was the one over Pennsylvania.
Right.
I mean, it's just, once you start going down that path, it's like you'll never tie it up. But as far as Stern, I just kind of did he leave all those people on with him, like Stuttering John and the whole gang, the rest of the way?
Yeah, the majority of people were in there. I think they may have filtered in and out during breaks and stuff like that. But yeah, it still was a bit of a. Now, I will say, also the reason I don't have a ton of clips from the end of the show is it was a lot more, you know, news coverage with them piping in here and there.
Okay.
So it wasn't as much of tell me about a tits, Howard. You know,
I haven't seen any great Stuttering John material. That's really what I was most upset about.
I know. I'm sorry. I did what I could. I pulled all the gems I could find. But...
That was great. That was really good. I love the clips you pulled.
Oh my God. Look at that fire you see in Swordfish. That'll never get old.
What's great too is that if you add, this is the thing about Stuttering John, is if you asked him now what was it like to be on air on 9/11, he would wax poetic about how he was in there for the news coverage, and it was all this day where they didn't know what they could say and all this and that. Like and I don't think he'd be lying. I think his brain is just, you know, waterlogged, and he has such a skewed memory of things that I like, in his mind he'd be telling the truth, which is why it's fascinating to go back and listen to him go like, "Did you grab a tits, Howard? How was Swordfish?"
I desperately want the drop of how was Swordfish, or have you seen Swordfish, or whatever he said.
we can send you that. Craig, send him that after the show.
I will send him that. I'll send him
in the most inappropriate spot. It just seems like it would work. And he also, you know how much healthier John sounds when he talks back then?
Oh, you know what? I meant to mention that actually. All their voices sound different for sure, but John's it's wild to listen to him back then compared to now.
And he talks differently too. I mean, he does. You're right. He sounds truly waterlogged.
Yeah,
he does. His mind does. It just doesn't work. He doesn't. He used to at least have a patter about him, and he got from point A to point B without too much trouble. Now it's a lot of I mean, he really just sounds so disheveled now. His brain sounds so disheveled. Waterlogged's a better word.
Now, before we get to our last clip, Drew, tell the people one more time the best place to find you.
Yeah, the Drew and Mike Show on iTunes, Spotify, or any platform that has podcasts. Actually, we're on 77 platforms, and Drew and Mike Show on YouTube as well, and subscribe to that. And that's plenty good.
Yeah, definitely go subscribe because they started their channel a month ago and they well surpassed us in subscribers. So they need the help, for God's sake. No, go subscribe to Drew and Mike Show everywhere you can.
Yeah, no, we always want more. Always more. You know how that is.
Absolutely. And blindmike.net if you want to support this program. That's where I find all the free links to this show, YouTube included, and the Patreon. So check all of those out if that interests you. Now, you're about to see how loosely associated a wedging of Norm into an episode can be when it comes to 9/11.
Hey, for the 9th consecutive year, Nick, JetBlue Airlines ranked first for satisfaction among all North American airlines. But you know what ranked least in satisfaction? 9/11 Airlines. What a terrible name for an airline. It reminds me of that tragedy. Oh, 9/11. You know, I don't laugh at 9/11. I tried so not to laugh. I know. I walked through blood and bones in the streets of Manhattan trying to find my brother. Jesus. Yeah, he was in northern Canada.
I can listen to that clip. I've listened to it since Norm died. I've been sent that clip. People send it to me like anytime it's posted on Instagram, people DM it to me and shit. And still every time I find it fucking hilarious.
It's very funny.
I don't know if you guys remember this, not to extend the program, but I don't know. After 9/11, like the next, like 2 days later till like 5 or 6 days later, people were showing up where all the live people are broadcasting, and they go, yeah, Blind Mike, what can I help you with? And someone like you would go up and go, yes, this is my sister, Patricia, and I haven't seen her in 5 days, and we're really worried about her. We're not, and I mean, the answer is obviously, yeah, I think she's in that pile of rubble over there. That's probably what it is.
Jesus.
I remember that.
Really?
Remember that. Yeah.
No one, of course, said, yeah, she's probably in that pile of rubble. But I mean, she was obviously in the pile of rubble, but nobody would say that. And so these people would line up with pictures going, yeah, this is my wife, and I'm looking for her. I can't imagine where she is.
Oh God, how sad.
It was light candles and hang the posters everywhere. And the answer is they're under all that concrete right over there.
The networks were playing on it. They were loving the emotion of it. And let's get as many people on here as we can because maybe someone has seen them somewhere. It's crazy. Who knows where they could be with all these people missing? What happened? My God, we had 9/11. Isn't that enough? Jeez.
2 giant building footprints. Where could they have gone?
It was bizarre. I'm telling you.
I love that. I thought it would be a good idea to end the episode with a Norm clip because it might be a little lighter than talking about 9/11. And then Drew goes, a lot of people held out hope to find their family members. Anyways, we'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Had a good time. Hope you did too.
Drew, you're the best. I loved having you on, buddy. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
No, it's fun. It was really fun. I enjoyed it for sure.
All right, guys, listen to the Drew and Mike Show every day, and we'll talk to you guys next time, or 4 days a week. I'm sorry, right? 4 days a week?
Yeah, we're pretty much 4.2 days a week, approximately.
All right, so make sure you go check that out, and we'll talk to you guys next time on Why You Laughing.
Zip it up and zip it out.